Hi folks, so here is the next in my appalling rendition of Warhammer Old World lore videos, and this week we are going to be going through magic in the Old World. Now, I've decided to do these videos like I normally do them, in which I'm going to be talking about the lore, talking about what I think about it, what works and what doesn't as we move our way through it. Rather than a historical blow-by-blow account, quite frankly, I've looked around on YouTube, there are better lore videos out there on the old world than mine than I would ever be able to do for you in terms of blow by blow count of the lore. Lore Master of Sotek is a really good one. Obviously Archer's old videos. He does really good videos back in the day. I forgot to do the desktop sounds again, but I will make sure it's done for next time where it doesn't come up. So. Yes, there are better lore videos out there. If you want to get a historical blow-by-blow account, one after the other, then make hay while the sun is shining. There are loads out there for you to go and look through. I will be looking at this from a writing standpoint, from what works and what doesn't. I have done a video on the channel before about magic in general, about how to use it in writing and how to make the most out of it. I do actually think that going forward, I'm going to remake that video because my opinions have formulated a bit more since then. Because people change in a few years. And I've read more things. And I've got a lot more opinions. So I want to get those out eventually. So, here we go. Old World magic. So, in the Old World, as you know, as we covered last time, the warp gate or the gate, the realm gates, at the top and bottom of the one world at the poles, cracked and were annihilated. Sometime with the fall of the old ones, and that introduced magic into the world. So magic in the Warhammer world is a corrupting force. It's not a very nice thing to be in the world. Quite a lot of the time, it's described as quite a nefarious presence within the world. Warhammer tends to have what I would denote as there are two forms of magic that you can have in a fantasy setting. There's hard and soft magic. So hard magic. Hard magic, sorry, I had a little cough there, is magic with rules. This is kind of magic that you would have, how do I put this? Brandon Sanderson does this really well in his Mistborn series, where he talks about using metals to do certain types of magic. So you ingest the metal, and then you can burn that metal within yourself, and it allows you to do a certain ability. Beyond that, you're not allowed. You can't do magic, right? You can't just start weaving magic out of thin air, right? Warhammer doesn't do that. Warhammer, I would describe as a very soft magic system. Warhammer generally lets mages do whatever the hell they want, and it tends to bend its own rules all of the time. Saying that, though, there is a system of magic within the Warhammer world. Alright, and that is called, or those are called, the winds of magic. The 8 winds, or colours of magic, and their corresponding colleges and laws, right? So, of the 8, I'll read them out here really quickly. So we have Heish, which is white. The colour is white. And it's the light order. And it specialises in light. As in sunlight, things like that. Camon, or Chamon, yellow, the gold order. And that is to do with metal. So if you've ever seen Balthazar Gelt, this is one of his favourite, well, if not his favourite, college. Giran, green, the Jade Order, and that symbolises life, things growing. A very elvish form of magic is the green form of magic. Azir, if you have played Age of Sigmar, some of these will sound familiar to you, because one of the things I like that Age of Sigmar did is that they carried certain parts of the Warhammer world forwards to inform the next setting that was coming up. And Azir is blue, and it's the Celestial Order, and it deals with the heavens. Okay? Deals with heavenly magic, paladins, things like that. Olgu, which is grey, the Grey Order, and that deals with shadow, so shadow magic, shadow binding, things like that. Shaish, which is purple, the Amethyst Order, and they deal with death, and that is, if you've ever seen Nagash, he'll be on one of the bits of art that we've got here in a minute. If you've ever seen Nagash, this is what he deals with. He deals in the magic of death, which originates with the Tomb Kings, if I am not mistaken. Akshi, which is red, which is the Bright Order, which is fire. Okay, a lot of fire mages. Like nearly every Empire mage in every video game is almost always a fire mage from the Bright Order. Gur, brown, the Amber Order, and that deals with beasts. Okay, so Gur is very much inclined with the Beastmen in Warhammer lore. So we can go through each and every single one of these. I'm not going to, though, because these magics are, in general, within the Empire, as in the Empire of Man, that's in the Warhammer world, there is a college of magic, and that deals with several colleges of magic. And there are 8 of them, and each of them deals with a specific form of magic, like one of the colours, essentially. With Balthazar Gelt being the head of the Gold Order, in part of the College of Magic. There's nothing in the Warhammer lore to say that one mage from one can't do something else, right? So there's nothing to say that somebody who is who focuses on the Yellow Order, which is the Gold Order, which is Balthazar Gelt's order that deals with metals. There's nothing to say that they can't all of a sudden start channeling stuff from the Celestial Order, heavens, if they're skilled enough to do it, or something reaches out to them from that part of the magical sphere to touch them and make sure that they can do it, right? This is what I mean about Warhammer's approach to magic. It is a very soft magic system. Anybody who's read a Warhammer book, a book from the Warhammer world, like an actual novel or a lore book, will realise that magic in the Warhammer world is very malleable. You can change it, you can pull it, you can make it do basically whatever you want to serve the story. Now, while I think that is a great boon for a writer to have in terms of writing lore, I also think it can be a bit of a crutch, and it can also be a danger. Because as soon as you start changing the rules on the fly, your entire setting loses all stakes. It loses all of its oomph, all of its, oh my god, anything can happen. If you always know the hero can just magic up a solution out of anywhere, what's the point, right? If you've ever read a Terry Goodkind book, you'll know the type of rubbish that I'm talking about, right? In most of his books, there will be something that happens where the main character just gets to do it because it just moves the story along and it's fine. And then you've got really good writers like Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson who don't do that, right? Who they take magic and they make sure that it can only do certain things. You can't just will things to be as you want. The world is not an ideal place to live. And it's very strange for such a grim, dark setting. Warhammer doesn't really follow that rule. It actually lets its mages do what the hell they want for the most part, and the power of mages in Warhammer, and this is one of the main things why I say it's a softer magic setting, the power of mages in Warhammer is absolutely unrestricted, right? If you're willing to learn, and you have a natural magical aptitude, you can become a god in this setting, i.e. Nagash, right? You can actually become a god in this setting. If you study and you go at it for millennia and thousands of years, you keep yourself alive, you immerse yourself in magic, and you have a natural talent at it, you can become a god. There's nothing stopping you, apart from hard work, essentially. Which is I suppose is a good message to give across. But at the same time, it does lead to certain problems when you have certain magical people like Alariel and people like that, where nothing is beyond them, essentially, at this point in time, when they get to a stage in magic. Which is why I prefer hard magic systems. I prefer magic systems with rules. I think all magic systems have are not one or the other. I think they're a mixture of both. Every single magic system is a mixture of both. And I actually think the Warhammer world is 80% soft, 20% hard, if you know what I'm saying. So, in terms of its rules, are very malleable, they're very changeable, the writer can use them to just change things on the fly. By the way, Warhammer 40,000 is also like this. It's 80 to 20, as far as I'm concerned, right? I'll go into Psychers when we get there in the Warhammer lore videos and Warhammer 40k lore videos, but in terms of the old world, magic is very unrestrained. There's nothing stopping you from going out and becoming the greatest mage that you ever can be, and then becoming a god later on, right? Every bit of evidence that we can see during the lore points to that. It also points to, of course, people becoming overwrought with magic. Magic is very chaotic in nature. So one of the things that I never really liked was that the realm of magic is supposed to be the Chaos realm, which I really like, the realm of Chaos. I really like that. So magic is actually quite a destructive force when you think about it. It's actually meant to be quite a corrupting force. But then you see things like Azir, the blue, the Celestial Order, heals people, right? You see things like the life magic. But you can also say that the gods of chaos, they can twist and pervert this magic as is theirs, right? Very strange. They're technically one of the only big drawbacks I can see to so much magical talent being heaped on you at one stage is becoming a chaos spawn, which obviously is very, very bad as you become an amalgamation of deformed, rotting, and mutated limbs. Very bad, right? But aside from that, most mages in this setting are almost completely unrestrained. There's nothing stopping Balthazar Gelt from casting some fire spells, right? If Balthazar Gelt figured out a way to live for a long, long time, there's nothing that says Balthazar Gelt can't go on and become a god himself. Okay? Absolutely nothing saying that at all. So, but we still do have different winds that do different things. And I would call that a hard magic rule. Okay, so you have different forms of magic that do different things. So a pure soft magic system, you would literally walk in to anywhere in the world and you can click your fingers and you can do anything. You can create fireballs in your hand. You can heal people. For instance, Dungeons & Dragons, The Forgotten Realms, has a very, very soft magic system. Where mages generally can do whatever they want. And that's by design, because they don't know how you're going to create your character. And so in the lore, they need to make sure that you're not really locked off from all of the spells in the game if you choose to go down this one route. Do you know what I mean? So, they have introduced some rules going forward, which is why I always say nothing's ever 100% soft or 100% hard. I know many people are giggling whenever I say that, but there we go. It's almost always a percentage of each, right? And I would say that the softest that we have is Dungeons & Dragons. It's the Forgotten Realms. Because magic can literally, by design, anybody can do pretty much anything as they're moving forward and as they're making their characters. Same thing goes for Warhammer. I would say it's more hard-edged than the Forgotten Realms is. Mainly because it at least tries to have some rules in there when it comes to the colleges of magic, at least in the Empire, right? And the fact that it's said in the lore that the colleges of magic are born out of the natural propensity of wizards to go down one route or the other. Not many mages are able to take on 2, 3, 4 winds of magic and become proficient at them all. In fact, it's so rare it's almost unheard of, but it is still in the setting, right? Nagash could use fire magic, for instance. There's nothing to say that he couldn't. Right? And I do firmly believe that power level means a lot in Warhammer. So if you have a mage who's on the level of a Nagash, for instance, the rules of magic kind of break down for him. Right? He can do whatever he wants at this stage, because his power and his achievement to magic is such that he can just call on it whenever he wants. That doesn't mean his fire magic's going to be as powerful as his signature death magic, but it still means his fire magic will outstrip almost every other mage in the Warhammer world. No problem, right? So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to hard and soft magic systems. I would say Warhammer has a very soft magic system, permeated with hard rules. So just before I finish, I want to go through all of these. I'm going to read them directly from Lexicanum, because I think this is a really good source. And it's the laws of magic. Okay? Let's have a quick read of this. So, light, the first one, which is the light order. It's Heish. Or Heish. So, the law of light derived from Heish, the white wind of magic represents the abstract of consciousness and illumination in the literal and metaphorical meaning of the world. It is a magic of philosophical truth and wisdom, as in shining light into dark places, rather than the more academic and fact-based wind of Kamon. The magisters of Heish are called hierophants, and are often seen in the role of philosophers and valued advisors. Alright? So, we're now seeing how the forms of magic permeate into the real world. I've said all these highfalutin rules about magic, but now we're actually seeing how these mages, how these magic users are actually used in the real world. And a lot of the people who are light, who are Heish or Heish, Light Order, white mages, using the white healing light that reveals truth, right? Most of them are philosophers and valued advisors. Brilliant. Fantastic. They also use a lot of exorcism spells as well. So these are the guys who use blinding lights to get rid of demons and things. Very nice. So, next, metal. This is big if you're an Empire fan. Let me just take a little drink of water here. I've replaced most of my sugary tea with water. New Year's resolution. Put a bit of orange juice in there, though, because water's too plain. So, metal. The lore of metal is derived from Camon, the yellow wind of magic, the densest of the colours of magic, and is attracted to heavy metals such as gold and lead, hence Balthazar's armour. Spells involving Camon frequently make use of two metals, gold as a magical conductor, lead as a magical insulator. Cool, huh? Compared to other magics, Camon is rooted in the physical world, and it is relatively easy to get to grips with its basic concepts, although it has deeper complexities which make it difficult to truly master. It can manipulate metal, especially armour, turning it against its wearer, so plates, rivets and chain all go molten, burning the wearer. Now metal doesn't really have a notion of, and these types of mages do this in the world, because it tells you there, right? They're very useful on the battlefield, which is why Balthazar Geld is probably the most famous one that the Empire has. So, going on to life. The lore of life is associated with Giran, the green wind of magic, which is closely tied to nature, water, and the flow of natural essence of life through the world. Okay, so if you're thinking Nurgle, you would be correct. It is strongest near sources of water or in areas where life grows in abundance, around rivers and lakes, by springs and forests and woods. Rainfall is known to unleash a torrent of Giran energy where it falls. The strength of Giran magic is generally affected by the seasons. It is most potent in spring and summer, and it declines during winter. Giran magic can be used in a wide range of spells, such as giving vital energy and providing healing. It can also be used to manipulate the natural environment and control water in all of its forms. Alright. So, healers in the Warhammer world, mostly using the green form of magic. I love the fact that it uses the natural forces of the world to go with it. It seems to me as a form of magic that waxes and wanes, right? It bends. It's not rigid. Metal is very rigid, whereas the life magic tends to, pretty chill. Imagine a lot of hippies are into life magic. And a lot of healers, of course. The heavens. Right, so heavens. We are down to Azir, blue, already halfway through almost. The lore of the heavens is associated with Azir, and if you're a fan of Age of Sigmar, you should know what that is. The blue wind of magic. The wind of Azir is light and insubstantial, and after passing into the world from the realm of chaos, it quickly dissipates into the upper portions of the heavens, which is why our sky is blue, for instance. Azir is the Aether's metaphysical drive for inspiration, and that which is out of reach. It is creativity and the desire to emote. Alright? Not emojis, but the desire to, get your way out there. It is inherently paradoxical, as it gives shape to abstract concepts, seeks to find meaning within the unknowable, and provides narrative for that which has none. The lore of heavens is commonly associated with dreams, theory, and divination. In battle, it manipulates the sky to harness destructive weather or draw upon the predictive powers of astrology to alter probabilities. It is by far the most balanced of all common laws, which basically means, it can be used for a lot of different things, essentially. Okay. Shadow. And by the way, if you're looking at heavens there and you're saying it's very insubstantial, I get that because it says it in the description. This is probably the softest form of magic that we've come across so far in the heavens, right? It's very abstract, isn't it? But it even says that it is inherently paradoxical, as it gives shape to abstract concepts, seeks to find meaning within the unknowable. I mean, that could mean anything, right? That could literally mean anything. That's why it's probably my least favourite form of magic, because it doesn't. The others that we've seen so far, light, metal, and life, they're all really rooted, really cool in-game concepts that I really like. Whereas this is more just out there, It's like it's there, it's doing things. You can let you see the future, I guess, right? That's very soft magic. That's the softest soft magic you're going to ever read in Warhammer, I think. So, shadows next. The lore of shadow is associated with Ulgu, the grey wind of magic. Ulgu is a mysterious wind which spreads disorientation and confusion amongst those it touches. It is spoken of as a thick grey fog, and it is drawn to still lowlands and waterways where natural mists gather at dawn. Ulgu invokes a sensation of being lost or perplexed by something that you can't quite put your finger on. The shifting isles off the coast of Ulthuan are shrouded with the power of Ulgu and provide an impenetrable gaze to protect the isle from invaders. The lore of Shadow tricks the foe into thinking that they have been hit by a giant pendulum, being attacked by ghosts slain by a monstrous floating sword. So convincing are these illusions that the foe usually keels over and dies anyway. That's pretty Discworld, I like that. Only the swift-minded can see past these tricks. It is generally used to confuse and befuddle the foe and sap their will to fight. Again, so, not really, it's kind of used for stealth, but it's more used for misdirection and fooling people. So you can imagine an assassin in this world using the Shadow School, right? Using the Shadow Wind of Magic, right? The Grey Wind of Magic, you can definitely see that. Now we get on to Death, one of my favourites. So the lore of Death is associated with the Shaiish, the Purple Wind of Magic. The power of Shaiish comes from the ending of things, the slow decline of the soul, and the certainty and terrible awe of death that all sentient creatures must face at some point. Shaiish tells us that even though physical form must inevitably come to an end, creation is permanent, and there exist forces larger than our mortal selves that deserve respect and even reverence. Shaiish is drawn to places where death must be faced, or where things are brought to an end. It blows strongly around battlefields, lingers around gallows and courts of justice, and hangs in the mournful silence around fresh graves. It is said to be strongest around times of obvious transition, when one state ends and another begins. Which is why I really like what Age of Sigmar did to Nagash, right? Because what happens to his character is naturally, he's almost a bystander, he's almost a recipient of what goes on when the Warhammer world dies, right? Right? Because his form of magic is strongest around the times of obvious transition, again, from the old world to Age of Sigmar, when one state ends and another begins. Which is why we now see Nagash as a god. So, Dawn and Dusk are the most obvious examples of this, but also Spring and Autumn, and the equinoxes that mark the beginning of the end of winter and summer. Death magic is used to attack solitary individuals, usually army leaders. Right, okay. Cool. So, it's very, very selfish form of magic, essentially. So, fire magic. The lore of fire is embodied by Akshi, the red wind of magic. Akshi blows down from the north as a hot and searing wind. Temporal heat acts as a conduit for Akshi. And so spells involving Akshi almost always involve fire. It collects around open flames, volcanoes and dry deserts, scorched by the sun. It is also attracted to wherever there is excitement and argument, courage and vehemence, since Akshi is the etheric coalescence of passion in its wildest possible sense. Akshi is wielded by the Order of Bright Wizards, who have their power base in the Bright Wizard College in Altdorf. The lore of fire is extremely destructive, comprising nearly exclusively of magical artillery. So there we go. Basically, fire mages. Boom. Right? Love it. I love the simplicity of these rules. Really nice. Apart from, obviously, Heavens. I mean, Heavens is fine. It's fine. It just doesn't have the in-law oomph that the others seem to have. It's almost made to be vague, which I'm not a big fan of when it comes to magical forces and settings. Beasts. The lore of beasts is associated with Gur, the brown wind of magic, which is the coalescence of bestial spirit, the predator and the prey. So think werewolves. It flows around the wild, untamed places where the touch of civilization has not yet been felt. It is a savage wind, as unreasoning as is devoid of malice. Amber wizards are often called shamans, and are rarely found in cities or other outposts of civilization. The Amber Order is the only order of wizards who do not have a building in Altdorf, but they are rumoured to occupy a series of caves in the Amber Hills to the west of the city. Only those foolhardy or most in need deliberately seek out the Amber Order. In battle, it augments troops to become stronger and tougher, turning mediocre troops into fearsome warriors. Probably mostly by mutating them into werewolves and things. So, that is what I love about the Warhammer World's magic in a nutshell, is that the 8 winds of magic, they permeate every single part of the world. So if you go to a wild, untamed place and you come across a big magical creature, you don't have to explain every single time where that creature comes from. Like in The Witcher you do, and in most other fantasy settings you do. In this, you just go, brown wind of magic, bang, done, and you can stop thinking about it, right? Because obviously the brown wind of magic is strong here. If you go to a graveyard and all of a sudden you're attacked by skeletons, death wind of magic, it's obviously around here somewhere, corrupting things and turning them into skeletons, right? I love that. I love the fact that it gives you, with the only hard rules this setting has, literally defines how the magic interacts with the world. And beyond that, make hay while the sun is shining, my friend. I really like that. Which is why, even though I'm a big fan of hard magic, there are some soft magic systems like this one that I actually am a big fan of. So, that is Warhammer World's magic systems. What do you think? Do you think there are any other magic systems that you really like that are out there? Let me know in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing, feel free to subscribe and like the video and all that rubbish. If you want to go on Patreon and buy me a beer, that's fine. Please only ever give what you can afford, if you can spare it. And thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you all next time. Have a good one.